you might be thinking, what's he up to now with all that trash? Well, let's find out. Welcome to another episode of Grow Your Understanding. Today we're going to play with some garbage. So, we got a ton of garbage from around the house just laying around me here. I was thinking the other day that a lot of this stuff could be useful. Instead of tossing it out and having it end up in a landfill, we could use it for our garden. So there's a couple of things as well that really came to mind when I was getting this stuff together. If you're new to gardening, haven't really done this stuff before, or don't have a budget, and you're saying to yourself, you know, I'd really like to try to grow some plants, but I don't want to spend a few $100s buying the necessary things like the pots, the grow lights, all that stuff. I mean, the grow lights and the heat pads are a bit of a convenience to better grow. You can do without it, but if you're looking to get started on a basic budget, there is a ton of things that you can do just with your regular household garbage that'll get you set up so that you just need to go out and buy seeds and get going, provided you have soil, of course. If you don't, you'd have to buy soil as well. But so let's start looking at some of these items. There's a couple of things I want to look at today, just to list them quickly. Homemade water jug, homemade humidity seed tray, some homemade pots, and I'm even going to try and experiment with some soil block techniques at home. That one I haven't tried before, so we'll see if that's an epic fail or not. Yeah, let's get started with the basics. We'll get going with the potting. So let's get that out of here. I mean, you could use a soup can for a pot, obviously, but okay, so as you will have noticed on my channel, I do already have some plastic containers like this as pots going. I also have egg cartons, these guys. One thing I did note, if you have been following along on the experimentation, these guys are great for being able to just like basically break off the cups and plant these items in the ground. The seeds will actually go through them. One of the videos I had previously, you can actually see the roots starting to grow through the paper. Very biodegradable, so you can prevent this from ending up in the landfill and use it for potting and just have it go and biodegrade in your garden essentially. Very simple. Major downside though, they do wick moisture out very quickly, so it's hard to keep your seeds moist if you're gone for longer than 12 hours at a time, whatever. I had to water my plants at least once a day. The other downside is if you have the wrong type of egg carton, they become incredibly weak and are very hard to move around, so I ended up having just a hard bottom on them, like a tray or a small piece of plywood or something. So there's that. And to show an example of the egg cartons, like I said, you can see this in my other, videos as well. Just using these trays. But here's one of our strawberry starts. You can see all the little strawberries coming in. I do have to support it underneath with a piece of plywood, otherwise it'll collapse. So not ideal, but still very convenient. You'll also see in my up potting video that I just grab the cups, rip them off, throw them in the dirt, and you don't have to worry about trying to pry the plants out of a pot like this. So handy for sure. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been stopping by the channel and watching. Really appreciate it. The kids really love it. They're having a blast. If you've enjoyed what you've been seeing so far, please consider subscribing just to support the channel. Turn the bell on and perhaps comment if you have any questions or suggestions for what you'd like to see us try on the channel. We would gladly try new things out. We're always looking to do new things. And once again, we really appreciate everyone for stopping in. Thank you. Next up, we got your plastic containers, kind of self-explanatory, but you can just fill these up. I always drill holes in the bottom first. You can either drill holes with a speed drill. If you don't have a speed drill, go ahead and just use a lighter and heat up a nail and just melt some holes in there just to let that moisture wick out in case it gets too wet in there. These will hold moisture better, and you can use the small little yogurt containers as your original seeding pods and then up pot through this, this sort of pattern here. Or you can just cut off. This is a Pringles container, and you can cut that down, use that as a pot. There's lots of options when it comes to pots. I mean, essentially anything that looks like a cup can be used as a pot. And the plastic ones, the benefit is you'll get multi-uses out of them. So, and just to show some quick examples of that, we have our little Activia yogurt containers as the seed starts. And then, like I said, those other two pots. And then you would move up into something like this, and then eventually into something like this. Yeah, super simple. Next up, the homemade watering can. So, of course, you can go to the store, get one of these, and they're not that expensive. It's not like they're that big of a deal. But once again, if you have never done this before and you don't know if you want to get into it, and just want to try it cheaply, then maybe this is the way to go. So just a 4-liter jug of milk. You can either just drill a bunch of holes in the top, and you guys have seen me using this on my channel all over the place. I use it all the time. I actually prefer it to the watering can for a couple reasons. It's more accessible. I can squeeze the bottle and sort of squirt the water where needed. And I'll just drill the holes in here. So if you don't have a speed drill, very simple method. Just a lighter, a screw, make sure it's a long one. And if there's kids watching this and they're wanting to try this, please use adult supervision. So heat up the end and just simply stab it through. One thing I really liked about this watering can method, I have a pot here, this is one of our grapefruit seeds, is you'll notice it's a nice gentle stream. It's not going to erode your soil, unearth the seeds. It's a lot more just friendly for light soil types that'll wash away quickly. So really good method there. You can also use other methods like a spray bottle, just an old Windex bottle or something like that. Just make sure that you're cleaning all the chemicals out of there first so you don't run into any issues with poisoning your plants. The milk jug isn't going to do that, right? So really quick and simple technique there. Time to move into an area that I've myself have never tried before, and that's creating these recycled humidity domes for seedlings. So I got a couple packages here. This is a salad mix, flat bottom. This one has holes in the top, so we'll see how much of that humidity gets vented out. I'm not quite sure if that's going to completely defeat the purpose, so we'll do a bit of an experiment on that. This is a shallow one. I believe this was blueberries maybe. And then a muffin one. So this one has the little depressed bottoms. And I'm going to try something else with that one in a bit. That's going to be quite interesting to see if we can do something else with that as well. So let's get started on this. I got a soil mix here. We're just going to fill up a couple of these, and then I'll throw them in my greenhouse. I'll throw a couple in the greenhouse, a couple just outside on my bench, and we'll see if you can see the humidity building up in there. You will need a warm area for this as well to work, but let's get started on that. We got 4 of these guys filled up here now. You might be asking, why humidity domes? What's the point of this? Why are we trying to do this when we got the greenhouse and all that? Well, plants thrive in humid areas. As if you've watched any of the other videos, then you'll see that ever since we brought in the greenhouse, the plants have been doing better. These are like mini versions of that. They'll keep the humidity in. They'll reduce the need for watering until you have to transplant them. Do I think it'll work? I've never done this before. Do I think it'll work? Yes. downsides that I see. Transplanting out of these might be a bit difficult just because of how they're structured. There's no pot to kind of hold the roots together, so that we might damage the roots a little easier when we try and up-pot them. And the other issue with this guy here is how shallow it is. I'm not really sure. We might put some smaller seed types in there. So, but regardless, we'll give it a whirl. We'll set them aside and we'll update you as the weeks go on here and see how these things do. Eventually we will have to move them into a bigger pot because, as you can see, there's only room in there for them to grow, to sprout essentially. So my seed selection for this particular experiment are leafy seeds. Reason being, often leafy seeds, lettuce, spinach, romaine lettuce, iceberg lettuce. Often with these, you can grow these in hydroponic systems without soil at all. So my hope is that we can literally grow these out to be like essentially living salads without having to transplant them. So it's kind of two experiments in one. Will the hydroponics work well? And can you just leave them in here with the lid open after and harvest right out of this little setup? Yeah, so let's give it a whirl. For those curious, both romaine and iceberg lettuce, look just tiny, like little grass seeds. Spinach seeds, kind of big and clumpy. So I normally just surface seed and then just put a little skiff of topsoil over, easier than digging a hole for every individual seed. All right, so we are planted and watered and closed up. We'll go put these away. Okay, so they're in there. Close that off. And we'll check back when we see some growth. Another quick little way to do a humidity dome. And this is a real cheap way. Set you guys down, sorry for the shaking. We got a pot, a Ziploc bag, simply place Ziploc bag over the pot. Will create a little humidity dome and should increase your early growth and lock that moisture in so you don't have to water quite as much. All right, so the last thing that I want to try, and this one's completely experimental on my part, is different ways to create your own soil blocks. Generally on Amazon, you can purchase a soil block press for 40 to 50 bucks, depending. That's Canadian. If you're in the States, it's probably 30, 35. So I'd like to experiment with different ways to create soil blocks in your house without spending the money if you're not sure you want to invest in the tools for it. So I'm going to set that up and we'll be back in a minute. So what exactly is the plan? First, I'm going to create a couple of working trays just to create a false bottom for the soil, what are they called? Soil pucks, soil blocks. And we'll get going. So here's the idea. Toilet paper rolls or paper towel rolls, biodegradable. Don't have to worry about actually getting the dirt out of these. My idea is you pack them full, plant the seed on top. It gives you enough soil because of the length for a root structure that can grow for quite a while before you need to transplant it. When you do want to plant it, you just stab this into the ground like a plug. The roots can grow at the sides. The one concern is the moisture going to unravel this immediately as soon as you put the dirt in here, or will it withstand it? So let's give that a whirl. I'm hopeful this one works well because this would be a really good hack and it will allow you to reuse something that everyone has in their house essentially. So let's start by jamming some dirt in here. I've already moistened the dirt to pretty close to what you would want it to be to create soil blocks, which is a wet consistency if you have the pH meter that I showed earlier on my channel. And I'm just using my hands to tamp this down. I'm already seeing that I'm lifting it up here and it's not falling out the bottom really. So I have it wet enough that I can see the soil, the moisture coming out the bottom. I'm gonna leave this just a little bit shy like that. I'm only gonna make one for now because I don't know if this thing's just gonna fall apart on us as soon as the moisture starts to wick through. So let's set that guy aside over here and see if it can withstand the moisture to begin with. So that was soil block number 1. Soil block 2. I've seen this one on the internets. Soup can. So I don't have a way to remove this. I didn't make a plunger yet, so that's going to be the problem for me. But I'm wondering if we can just like, boom, hit it on the table and it'll come out. So let's give it a whirl. And for those that have never used soil blocks, welcome to the club. I have never used them. I've always used either paper cups or just bought pots from the greenhouse and transplanted those in the garden. This is my first season ever actually doing early starts. Now, that's not true. I did a little bit last year, but last year was a bit of a joke for early starts. I'm seeing an issue with this immediately when using your fingers to hand tap it is the jagged edge. You gotta be very careful, so that's not ideal. The other thing is, this is kind of a deep soil block. I can definitely see myself, if I'm making like 100 of these, this is taking too long. This isn't gonna work very well. And my soil's a little too moist. I can tell that right now as well, because I got a little bit of a puddle. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of dry soil and just sprinkle it on top. Kind of like throwing some flour on dough to try and absorb some of that moisture. Moment of truth. It's not even moving. That's not gonna work. So this is gonna need a plunger. I gotta say, I don't like the can idea. That said, you drill a little hole in the back and you put a bit of a plunger in there, it wouldn't be a big deal. That actually gave me another idea. I wonder if a silicone gun would work. If you like grab the mechanism from a silicone gun, that squeezed thing with the plunger, and then you use an empty silicone tube on the back as your form. I'm gonna say I don't like that one. Okay. Pringles can. So my thought process here was box cutter. That can go back in your recycling bin, or if you don't recycle, you should. So this is squishy enough that you can form it. The inside is lined with a slippery coating, and it's greased up by the chips that were in it, so this might actually work quite well. Let's give it a whirl. I'm gonna start by dumping that back in there, back on the table. And like I said, it's too wet, so a little bit of fresh, dry dirt in there. So the way I'm doing it probably won't work because you can't compact it without another tool. Plan B. The other thing that's nice about the Pringles cups is that they have lines on them, which is almost like a guide for where to cut so that you get an even soil block? Puck? I'm gonna call them soil pucks because I'm Canadian. And pucks are cooler than blocks, so. All right, now you got a nice little form like that. Let's try that out. Now, being new to soil blocks, I'm not sure if they're supposed to hold their form like indefinitely or if they fall apart, like how you keep them solid. I don't know. We're kind of just trying to figure this out. The other thing is I don't know how packed this is supposed to be. Like I might be overdoing it, I might be underdoing it. There might be logs in there. Okay, now, moment of truth. I mean, it is a puck, but it's not really solid. The other thing that I could be doing completely wrong is using the wrong soil type. I'm gonna try that again, and I'm gonna really put some force on it this time. Hold the table up. Because I know on soil block machines, they have like a lever, so that like you really lay into those things. Excuse me. Go. I think this one's a fail. Hold on. By Joe, we might have it. Look at that fit. Now I'm really gonna cut myself. So now, just so I can slice my hand open. Okay, now, grab this. Come on. Well, that is a soil block. We'll check that out. Now, I'm gonna set this aside too and see how well it holds up after setting a bit. I don't know if soil blocks are supposed to like maintain their integrity. We did learn something new. A Campbell's soup can fits perfectly into a Pringles sleeve. And we were able to create a nice little soil puck like that. It's almost a perfect hockey puck, honestly. And now we're gonna give it some time to set up and just make sure that it doesn't fall apart. So there might be some hope for that yet. I would say it'd be nice to find a safe way, like if you had a can, like a peanut tin with a lid on it so that you can not cut yourself or use gardening gloves. It's an interesting thing. Stores nicely too. Okay. So soil puck option 3, and this one I'm really optimistic for. I'm hoping this one works well. I got a muffin tray here, plastic one. I'm just gonna chop off the lid. And then you got these little indents for the muffins. We're gonna fill those up, pack them down, and see if we can make little pucks out of that. And if that works, then we might try using a muffin tin, like an actual metal muffin tin, and just packing that thing full. You can buy those things so that they come in like dozens. And that would be like a quick way to make many at a time. And this particular muffin tin might fail because it's so shallow. Now I know that they make soil blocks that are thicker and thinner, but they probably have specific properties to make them compact, like more clay, less clay, straw maybe in there for some reinforcing. But for now, I'm optimistic. I'm hoping this one works. And I might have a very wrong soil type for this. I may. I'm just using Miracle-Gro. Ready? Here we go. One stayed in. Well, that's optimistic. Just like that, we have 5. That one's a little misshapen, but that doesn't matter. It's a soil puck, you're gonna bury it later anyway. 6, boom. Wow. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit surprised by that. We're gonna let these all kind of sit here for a bit and see how they do. This guy's looking good still. He's wet on the outside, don't get me wrong, but he's holding together. All right, we'll give those some time, we'll come back, we'll summarize. And I got one more thing I wanna try, and this one I'm excited about. If this one works, I will be pretty pumped. but it'll take a little bit of time to determine if it works. So let me set up and we'll be back. So what is this exciting thing that I'm on about? I've always been curious about hydroponics and soil that's growing. And when I was going through the recycling to make this video, I came across these two things right here. This is like a green shake or mineral shake container from Costco, I believe. And this is a Philadelphia cream cheese container. And they fit perfectly inside one another. So my thought is, fill this thing up with water, drill some holes in here, and create a mini hydroponic setup. Now I know lettuces and stuff thrive in this sort of situation, so let's give it a whirl. I got a drill bit. So I got one large center hole for the root system to get into the water. Now this system does require liquid fertilizer, and then I'm going to drill 3 smaller holes on the outside. So that fits directly in there. So now we're going to fill this up with water and see how it looks. All right, and oh yeah, you can see my pile of garbage in the background there. I better clean that up before Rose sees that, because yeah, that's how I got all this stuff. So there it is, full of water. Now we need to figure out a way to plant the seeds without having them drown, fall through. And the way that a lot of hydroponic systems do that is with a piece of styrofoam. So I'm gonna see if I can find something like that in the waste to keep on track with our entire recyclable theme today. So, and just like that, I found this guy, which is a shield my son made. Call it an early cosplay. But he tossed it out because it's torn and ripped. They got a little too into it, I guess. Excuse me. So we're gonna cut this to the size of the Philadelphia container. So I want it just a little smaller, but I'm gonna lay it out like this right now, and I'm just gonna trace it. All right, just like that. It's a little too big, which we knew because we went to the outside of the cup. So we need to trim that back a little bit. And just like that, you got your hydroponics bed. So we got our lettuce seeds here. This is what we're gonna try. I know lettuce works for hydroponics. I'm not gonna lie, I am a little bit stumped on how to get the seeds started. So I'm gonna give that some thought. And then I will tell you how to do it. Okay, be right back. So I tried to do some research. There's way too much information out there. So I'm just gonna give it a whirl. What I'm gonna do is I'm basically gonna cut little slits through, but leave enough foam in place to keep it kind of rigid. So you'll see, I don't know if you can see that, but kind of little cuts like that. I'm gonna sandwich the seeds in there. Then I'm gonna make sure that the seeds are below or in the water level so it can kind of absorb a bit, and we'll see if they germinate. No clue. We're in the experimental zone for sure now, so I find hydroponics fascinating, and I do plan on eventually getting like a proper hydroponic setup on this channel. Whether or not I build it myself, I don't know, like a vertical pipe hydroponic system or like a tub hydroponic system, not sure. I got a couple ideas in place, but for now, this is what we got. So I have jammed a bunch of seeds in there. I'm gonna dunk this below the water level and then let it come back up so that I know the seeds have all got a bit of moisture, and then just pop it back up a little bit. And now that I've added the foam, the whole setup's floating, so I'm gonna add some rocks underneath just to settle that down. My wife has some liquid Miracle Grow. I'm going to put a bit of that in there so that the water has nutrients, and then put that in the UV. And I'll keep you updated to see if this little system works. I know that they prefer running water to avoid stagnation, algae buildup, and stuff like that. If I start to see issues like that, then I'll report. I mean, I'm not going to put a little filtration system in this. I just found some tubs that fit well, and we want to try it out. So I'll keep you posted. Okay, so I am mostly cleaned up. These pucks are still doing pretty good, so that might work. If they fall apart, I'll keep you updated. This I'm really optimistic about. I like that. I'm going to plant some seeds in there, provide updates. So I got a couple more to try out. That might work all right. Yeah, and then after a bit of time in the warmth, you can see the condensation already building on a couple of these humidity domes. I'll keep you posted on those as well. But so far, looking good. And with that, I'm going to wrap up the video. We'll provide updates on everything we did here today, including the hydroponics, which are still over on the table there. Hydroponics update. So the lettuce seed in the foam did not work. I'm assuming it flooded them and drowned them. And the way normal hydroponics works is you sprout the plant first and then you put the roots in the water and let it grow. So we've done that here. I've taken some of the runts from other pots. We got a couple of peppers in there and a couple of tomatoes. And I've just kind of slotted them in to this little Philadelphia cream cheese container, and the roots are below in the water, and we'll see if this does better. They've been in there about a day, and it looks like they're doing well so far. Still upright, haven't started turning yellow. Yeah, I'll keep you guys posted on how this version of the hydroponics is working. I'll give you updates on the plants. As you can see, everything is growing quite well. We've put everything out to slow down the growth a bit. We're still incredibly far away from being ready to plant these outside, and they're growing too quick right now, so we need to put them out where it's a little chillier, slow them down, but things are going well. And here's another batch of plants down here doing well. And thank you everyone so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.